Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I am Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is the amazing Mark Schall. Hey, I have known Mr. Shaw. Is it Shaw? I do this all the time. I'm from down south, so I go Shaw, and he goes, "It's Shaw." It's Shaw, right? Mark Shaw. Sorry about that. I have known Mr. Shaw for a many, long time, it, he's always doing something wild and crazy. I'll tell you his latest. Well, I don't know if this is his latest accomplishment, but this is the one that really impresses me. He was named the top coach for 2021 by Influence Digest. A little bit of jealousy going on here, but that's okay. We'll find out how he did that. So, Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you so
Thank you,
much for being
Lori.
my guest.
Great to see you. And it's been 16 years that we've done
Is that, oh my gosh. And I know we did a show long ago. You saved my VCR. That's how long ago it was because I didn't know how to use it. And you came over and showed me how you fixed it. So that was a long time ago. So what you been doing, Mark?
coaching the world
One step at a time. I hear
one
you.
step at a time, one person at a time, one mind at a time.
You know what I'm interested in? I don't think I know this about you. What made you become a coach? How did you even get into coaching? Because you started round about when I did, which was way back when I thought we were pioneers, but we really weren't. But it felt like it. How'd you get
No,
into it?
it's a great question, Lori. It's funny. So my half serious answer is it started way back the day I was born
Oh
in
no.
19 in 19.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I got
um,
you.
so I was born to be a coach. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. It's definitely a life purpose career for me. Um, and but what happened was ultimately, so you know, I thought I wanted to be a psychotherapist, and so I went to college, majored in psychology, and thought that I was going to go to grad school for a PhD in clinical psych. When it came time to apply for grad school, it just wasn't aligned for me. I was like, this is not what I want to do. Um, and I then, but I had been an RA in college, so a resident assistant. So for your viewers who might not know what that is, that's the student that lives at the end of the hall in the residence hall, who's trained to like deal with all kinds of policy enforcement and scheduling events and educational events and whatnot and counseling interventions. And I was an RA for 2 years in college and loved the whole residence life, college residence life experience. And I learned that you can get a master's degree in student development, which is the application of human development theory to college age students in any of the non-academic realm of student life and how students grow and develop.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of such a thing. I
It,
love
it,
it.
it was so exciting. And I wanted to be a residence hall director. I wanted to be what my boss did when I was an RA, which is a full-time university position. And I found a program. Indiana University of Pennsylvania had a very prestigious program in that, where you are a residence hall director for 2 years while you're working on your master's. And you get free tuition, room, and board.
Oh.
So I was like, you know what? That's a hot deal. I loved it. It was such an amazing 2 years. And I was basically, that was really the beginnings of my becoming a life coach without really knowing it. Life coaching wasn't even a thing yet, right?
Right.
So, excuse me. So, lots of counseling interventions with students, roommate conflict mediation, homesickness, drug abuse, alcohol stuff, this educational discipline, as well as creating programs and activities and events for helping students grow and develop, and really loved it. And that was my career for the next 10 years. I worked in housing and residence life in colleges and universities doing exactly that. I worked at NYU, I worked at Iona. And then I did the Landmark Forum, which for those who might not know is a weekend-long personal development course done by Landmark Education, um, and loved it. And that's when I started being exposed to coaching as a thing. And I met people who called themselves coaches and life coaches. And I was like, that sounds like something that's really cool. I wish I could do that. Somehow it just didn't seem like anything for me. It was like, I missed the boat. Um, and then ultimately, I left my higher ed career when I got laid off from NYU due to an organizational restructuring, and went into nonprofit fundraising for a little bit of time, working for an event called the Boston, New York AIDS Ride, which was a 250-mile bike ride from Boston to New York over a 3-day period to raise money for AIDS organizations in both cities. And it was largely a coaching role because I was, in addition to recruiting new riders and doing a lot of talks to large groups to help recruit new riders, which is really where I began to realize I had a gift for public speaking. And I was also coaching riders on setting their fundraising and training goals so that they could actually complete the ride successfully. That's actually when I did the Landmark Forum, because the director of the AIDS Ride actually gave us partial tuition if any of us wanted to do the forum, because he realized how much of a possibility it would create for the whole event to be that much better with the whole staff operating at a more powerful level. So fast forward, I started doing more public speaking, training in organizations through a friend of mine that had a business doing that. And then a friend of mine did a coach training program, and I saw such an amazing change in him when he did the program.
I know who you're talking about, but that he don't remain nameless.
Yeah, so
I
Jim,
know who you're talking about.
yep, exactly. So Jim encouraged me. He said, "Mark, this stuff is so you." He goes, "You need to be a coach. You are a coach." And he said, "You got to take this training program. And if I know you any better, you'll end up working for them." So, which is exactly what happened. And I became an instructor for the program for the next 16 years. So, yeah, and I have my own thriving coaching business. I love it. I sometimes partner with other coaches on various projects or with big coaching accounts, or sometimes it's a training thing. And it's just awesome. It's definitely my life's work. It's just a joy.
Talk about the universe calling you. And I have a firm belief that the universe does call who it wants to be a coach. It's like, and you just seem to be standing in the right area each time it rang its bell, and you said, okay, here I am. So, yeah, I met you when you were doing training, which and I'm not sure I've ever met you when you haven't been doing some kind of training, which is good. It's a good use of your talent for sure.
Thank you.
And friends of our and that we know, our mutual friends, go, how does he get the energy to do that? And I think it's really, you tell me, where does your energy come from? Because you do some massive training on a long-term basis. Where do you replenish? Because it's like I can do 4 or 5 hours, and that's about it. You're talking 18-hour days and 3 days and crazy stuff. Where do you get that energy?
And travel on top of it to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I don't know. I think part of it is having ADD helps me a little bit.
Okay.
Because I can bounce around and not get tired. Um, I I think it's because I love it so much. If it was something that I didn't enjoy, I don't think I would have the energy for it. You know, um, and I'm an extraordinary extrovert. So I get energy from being with other people, from being in front of other people, and facilitating that kind of conversation. I draw on that. So it's funny. My training would be like a 10-hour day. And then sometimes people would be like, oh, let's all go out for dinner together. And some people would be like, no way. And I'm like, sure, let's go. As long as I keep going, I'm fine. If I stop,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would suspect the day after your marathon trainings, you're probably dead to the world, and you've definitely earned that right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I structured my business so that I had no Monday morning clients after a weekend training.
Perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
because I need to sleep till like noon. But yeah, no, I love it. I enjoy it. And it's funny, people would ask me, don't you get tired traveling all the time? I'm like, you know what? If it was like a sales position that I only kind of enjoyed, I don't think I could have done all of that travel. Because maybe I would be teaching a weekend in Toronto, and then I'd be teaching a weekend in New York, and then a weekend in Washington, D.C., and then a midweek program back in New York. And, it was a lot, sometimes 14 almost straight days. And I just never tire of it.
It's your legacy, is very true to that. It's like he's an energetic guy who's going to keep you going and enlighten you, and a hell of a coach. So what do you do? How are you coaching now? What are you doing? You said you have your own business. What is that about?
Yep. So I coach clients mainly in the areas of personal development, relationship, career. So sometimes my clients come to me on their own for those things. Sometimes an organization hires me to work with a manager on their leadership training and development. Lots of that going on, which is really great. I also partner with a friend of mine who has a coaching business called Conductive Coaching, and we do mostly corporate, largely in the banking industry. So we do a lot of leadership training, coaching, development, which is also very exciting. I also have become a mental health coach with Lyra Health. Um, so I know, have you heard of Lyra?
I have, yes, yes.
Yeah. So again, for your viewers, so Lyra is basically an outsourced employee assistance program, or EAP. So they have large companies who are their clients, and those companies' employees and their dependents are all eligible to receive coaching or therapy through Lyra, for a certain limited number of sessions. And we have a 6-session coaching model. So when somebody goes to utilize the service, they do an initial assessment that determines if it's going to refer them to therapy or to coaching. So I'm one of I think there's a couple of hundred Lyra coaches. So I'm one of the ones on their team, and it's really cool, and it's all evidence-based resources, evidence-based coaching model, all for managing stress and anxiety. So a lot of it's about mindfulness, and it's basically cognitive behavioral coaching.
That's gosh, there's so many questions I don't want to ask you about both areas now, but as we all know, we big changes came about in 2020, and I know that your dynamic was in person with the energy and spreading it around and just being there. What changes did you have to make in 2020, and what benefits did you see from those changes?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the biggest change, of course, was teaching our coach training program. That all went online.
Yeah.
And from what to be a rather intensive interpersonal experience for a weekend in person, to translate that to online was quite a feat. And it
Yes.
was a very, very big change, and quite a successful one, I have to say. I would still hear things from students like the same things that we would hear in the in-person program, where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that was 3 days. It didn't feel like it. When people were actually dreading having to sit in front of their computer for 3 days, 10 hours a day. I mean, that sounds dreadful to anybody,
Yeah.
right? We weren't even sure how it was going to work out, and it turns out great experience. Students love it. And so I think that's really been the biggest change. And I've also, yeah, other than that, most of my business, my coaching, was by phone anyway. Before COVID, no one heard of Zoom. Sometimes as coaches, we might do Skype, as a video thing, or FaceTime. But it wasn't widely, coaching was done by phone mostly. And so it was mostly by phone for me, and some in person as well. And so the switch over to video chat for coaching sessions was a very easy shift for me. Working from home was an easy shift because I was mostly doing that anyway, right? So I'm very thankful, very grateful, and very fortunate that experience was not. It was a lot easier for me than it was for so many people.
I know.
And I really get how fortunate and lucky I am for that.
And if ever there is a time when coaches are needed, it is now. So it is a very fortuitous situation into which we have put ourselves, which is, and I'm grateful for that all the time. What issues, because I know my clients, and mostly mine is are one-to-one on personal, their issues change. Their issues suddenly, they weren't so concerned with losing weight or advancing their career. There were other issues as of 2020 where it was like, oh, wait, I spend time with myself and I'm scared. What do I do now? What issues change for you? Not for you, for your clients. Well, for you also, if you'd like, but for your clients, especially in the leadership area, because I would think that's a big adjustment that's coming, still being worked out.
Yeah, it's huge. It's largely about how to build, foster, and maintain team in a virtual environment. You know, when you lose the everyday walking past each other by happenstance on your way to the water cooler or the bathroom or to go to somebody else's office or whatnot, um, there's a lot of really important, seemingly mundane interaction that happens, right? That I think we're realizing without that, something big is lost. So leadership becomes a very different skill set. Look, just like training on a video platform is something that's very different for an instructor than in person. Same thing with leading a team, very different virtually than in person. Many things are very different virtually than in person, right? So leadership is one of those. And most of us, I don't think most leaders have those skills. Some have it naturally and can transition very easily, like I did as an instructor, but um, some it's just much harder, and they might just not be attuned to what some of the differences are and the extra efforts that you've got to make to connect with people. The importance perhaps of online meetings that are just about time together rather than just the work, so things like that became really important. And then at times where it looked like people were going to be coming back to work, which was like last August, or July, when the numbers were way down, at least in New York, and some other areas, there was a lot of panic about coming back to work. And the top level leaders in organizations also needing to be aware of things like, yeah, you can expect people to come back because maybe it's safe in the office for how you're going to have different protocols. But what you have to realize too is that your employees, how are they going to get to work? They're not comfortable taking mass transit yet, And while as a high level executive, Uber works for you, for somebody a little bit lower down on the org chart in the organization, that's too expensive and can't be done. So how am I going to get to work? And that's something that needs to be talked about and included in those conversations. So I facilitated over the course of time several conversations, with managing directors and employees and executives and stuff about navigating some of that terrain.
One thing that I liked, and I hope that it continues, is we defined essential workers differently, where it's not necessarily the big guy at the top. It's someone who gets your sandwich to you, at lunch, and I hope that there's oh, for lack of a better word, a working humanity, where we remember that, that everybody's a part of this game and everybody does their part. So, yeah, and that's something that I think we're all going to have to keep adjusting to.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. Something that comes to me when you said, the essential workers are not the big folks at the top, right? And I heard it said once, if you think your team needs you more than you need them, take 2 weeks off, come back and see how things go, then give your whole team 2 weeks off and see how you do.
There you go. What a perfect lesson. Yes, yes, yes. I like that. Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
and
think we learned that. That was good
yeah,
to know.
and
Yeah.
I think ultimately what it says is, look, everybody's important. We wouldn't be hiring them and paying them if they weren't important, right?
Right, right.
And everyone's essential in some way, shape, or form. And then, of course, essential means different things at different times, right? When there's no panic and chaos going on, everyone's essential. You know, um, when there's panic and chaos, something like a pandemic, those things get redefined, right? And Not that as human beings anyone is less essential, but there are roles that go away because business shifts and changes or closes down and whatnot, right? So um, yeah, there was a thought that came to mind that just went poof, um, that I was going to share about essential workers, and I don't know, it'll come back to me.
Okay, hopefully before we end, but if not, we'll do a Mark Schall part two. What the heck?
There you go. There you go. It'll happen to me at 3 in the morning. It'll dawn on me. I'll text you.
Oh, that was it. That was it. Tell me, how did you become the 2021 top coach?
The same way you got to Carnegie Hall.
Practice,
This
really.
practice, practice.
I love it. I love it. It was just like, I mean, was it something that you applied for? Was it something that did they just hear your name? Because I know you're out there all over the place, running
Yeah.
around with your ADD, getting a lot of stuff done. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was all through social media presence, and I'm not even sure what their whole process is, but yeah, it's all through social media presence and whatnot, and it was a surprise to me.
Wow, that's something that stays on your resume and in your signature for life. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very very proud, very excited, very grateful for that.
Yeah, congratulations. Are you still doing Mark My Words podcast?
So I haven't done it live in a while. So all the old, the previously recorded episodes are still available. But yeah, I haven't done it live, but I'm going to go back to that and resurrect it. So I've had a
Are
lot of
you doing?
requests. Got a
Oh,
lot of requests for it. So people really liked it. So yeah.
definitely. And podcasts are so hot now. Who knew that people would listen to pod? And that seems to be the main source of communication. So good, good, good. So what is? Are you still doing? We're catching up on air. Sorry. Are you still doing the core value index?
Yes, the CVI
Yeah.
assessment. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually there's a free version available to take it on my website, which is very cool. So yeah, so if
Tell me
anybody,
your website. What is your website?
so it's markschall.com, and that's
You can
SCHALL.
pronounce it shall if you want.
Exactly. Don't care how you pronounce it for finding it online.
Just
Uh,
really.
so yeah, so markschall.com, and yeah, it's a really really great assessment that really helps you learn quite a bit about your core motivational drivers, who you are at your core, and why you find certain activities naturally engaging and exciting and others not, which is great as a career coaching tool. It's also great as just a personal style tool to find out how do you want to live your life in ways that are more in line with your wiring and your design, right? And also with regard to how we communicate differently based on our different core value profiles. So it's a great relationship building tool for teams, for couples, for parents and their kids. So it's really awesome. So yeah, so if you go to markschall.com, you could take a free version of it, and you'll see after you get to the website in 10 seconds, a pops up inviting you to take it's called the coaching assessment at that point, and just go ahead, fill in the information, take it. It gives you a really great free report, which you then have the option to upgrade and get a debrief from me for a full 1 hour private one-to-one debrief.
Wow. Now, is this like your astrological sign? It's forever. It's fit, or is this flexible? I mean, can you adjust it? Can you say, oh, here's a shortcoming, I want to work on it, or I want to enhance what I already have?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So it's believed to access a what we call your innate and unchanging core value nature. Yeah, so it's like our hardwiring, right? And so what you learn is that you may have a capacity in a certain quadrant on the assessment, right? So say you have X number of points of capacity to develop that. You might not be using all of that capacity. So then the coaching work is we can develop more of that. But what doesn't change is the capacity.
Okay.
And whereas most assessments have a repeat score reliability factor in the industry of in the 70 and 80% range, this has a 97% repeat score reliability 10 years out and beyond, which is partly why we believe that it captures an innate and unchanging core value nature. That's something that also Abraham Maslow theorized about.
That's amazing. Now, just because you say it's innate and unchanging, doesn't mean that it can also be a guide for things that you want to change, right? And you just have to, how do we go about doing that? Is that, am I doing
Yeah.
it right?
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll give you an example. I score extremely high in the quadrant that's all about connecting with people, establishing rapport, et cetera, which of course, that makes a lot
That's
of sense to
surprising,
anyone who
right?
knows me, right? I score extraordinarily low in the quadrant that's about collecting information and categorizing information and data and records and data collection and things like that, right? Um, and so all of those kinds of tasks, my taxes, receipts, the checkbook, the finances, right? That I've struggled with all my life, I now know why. I'm not wired to do that. It's not the gift I was given to contribute to the world. I'm using the gifts I was given to contribute to the world, right? And anytime I'm not using those, it's a waste of my time. I'm better off either farming that out, right? Or at least not expecting so much of myself and beating myself up. Why can't I do this and stay on top of it like other people can? I now know why, right? And then there are strategies. Sometimes we have to do the things that are in our weaker areas, in which case it's how you schedule them. So instead of fooling ourselves into, I'm going to schedule 3 hours of a block of time to get this stuff done that I hate doing, that's draining, that's exhausting, and you're not going to do it. So it's about scheduling 10, 15 minutes at a time, where the measure of success is that you did it for that amount of time, not that you completed it or not. And then come back to it a couple of hours later or a day later. If I did that with some of that stuff, I get more done in a week than I get done thinking that sometime this week I'll find 3 hours to do it.
Brilliant. I remember you said something, you were telling, I guess you were in training somebody, and you said something about after you had taken the CVI, that you said, I realized that I don't do book work and stuff, so I hired a virtual assistant. And I was like, oh my God, that's so simple. Why not? So you know your talents. Look, we got a
Absolutely.
minute left. Do you believe that? Time,
Wow.
we need to talk more, but and just catch up. But I want to make sure that people know how to find you. And share in your energy. So it's Mark Schall,
And
MarkSchall.
now MARK.
What did I say? Oh my gosh, I'm
MARK.
trying to be helpful. MARK. I was trying to remember the C, SCHALL.com. And you can take your free core value index thing there. You can engage with Mark on some other things, listen to some of his podcasts. This man is not going to leave you bored, trust me. So I thank you so much for being a part of the coaching game. It's been far too long, and I think we need to do it again. But thank you. I'm so thrilled that you're out there doing what you're doing because you do
Uh,
it so well.
Thank you, Laurie. Always a pleasure to speak with you. So anytime, I'm yours.
Okay, I'm taking you up on it. Thank you, Mark.